Right, let's go deeper again. Let's put some more feet to the fire. I've done a lot of research in this week on a lot of things. And the uptick to that is there may well be another must-listen-to show coming on Tuesday. Expose 5. Right. There's been some chatter about a Klaus Schwab. So I did some digging of where he's from, who he's connected to, and we're going to put his feet to the fire now. Klaus Martin Schwab, born March the 30th, 1938 in Ravensburg, Germany, and was a German engineer and economist best known as the founder and an executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. Now, in 1971, Schwab founded the European Management Forum, which in 1987 became the World Economic Forum, as a not-for-profit foundation, which is clown, committed to allegedly improving the state of the world. Well, 33 years later, what have they done? Zero, because it's false. Now, in 2015, the World Economic Forum was formally recognized by the Swiss government as an international body, so connected to the Rothschilds then. In 1998, Schwab and his wife founded the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship, which was another NGO based in Geneva, Switzerland. In 2004, he created a new foundation using $1 million in prize money for the Dan David Prize he received that year from Israel. How interesting, Mr. Schwab. Now, the Forum of Young Global Leaders aims to create a dynamic global community of exceptional people under 40 with the vision, courage and influence to drive positive change in the world. Depends on which side of the aisle you perceive as being positive, does it not? But not all is the same. And Schwab was the Professor of Business Policy at the University of Geneva from 1972 to 2003, and since then has been an honorary professor there. Since 1979, he published the Global Competitiveness Report, an annual report assessing the potential for increasing productivity and economic growth of countries around the world, written by a team of economists. Well, that's a complete and utter waste of time then. And the report is based on a methodology developed by Schwab, measuring competitiveness not only in terms of productivity, but also based on sustainability criteria. Yeah, sustainability. He's also listed as the author of several books, including The Fourth Industrial Revolution, 2016, and Shaping the Fourth Industrial Revolution, 2018, both of which were ghostwritten by the WEF employee Nicholas Davis. From 1993 to 95, Schwab was a member of the UN High-Level Advisory Board on Sustainable Development, 1993 through 1995. That is Agenda 2021 or 2030 Agenda Programme of Population Reduction. From 1996 to 98, he was Vice Chairman of the UN Committee for Development Planning. He also exercised a number of other functions, such as being a member of the Perez Center for Peace. Oh, dear me. That's a misnomer if ever there was one. And a member of the board of the Lucerne Festival. Probably Swiss Ritual Sacrifice Festival, if you ask me. Now, during the early years of his career, he was on a number of company boards such as the Swatch Group, the Daily Mail Group, von Tobel Holding, and is a former member of the steering committee of the Bilderberger Group. Klaus Schwab, the founder of the globalist World Economic Forum and one of the principal architects of the so-called Great Reset, is saying that the world will never again return to normal as a result of the COVID-19 virus, despite admitting that the virus is not an existential threat. Schwab believes the world's reaction to it will create the long-awaited New World Order. In his book COVID-19, The Great Reset, Schwab explains, many of us are pondering when things will return to normal. The short response is, never. Nothing will ever return, he says, to the broken sense of normalcy that prevailed prior to the crisis, because the coronavirus pandemic marks a fundamental inflection point in our global trajectory. And this, despite the pandemic not really being the massive crisis that the mainstream media and leftists insist that it is. Schwab admits, unlike certain past epidemics, COVID-19 doesn't pose a new existential threat. And despite the coronavirus not being an existential threat, Schwab believes that it can and should be used as the catalyst to create a new world system, which he calls the Great Reset. And this new system, where capitalism still exists in a watered-down form, but where the real power is wielded by a few global elites with more authoritarian forms of government aiding and abetting them. Clowns in panic proven yet again. Our show was criticised early this year by some members for not covering the COVID story. I said it was BS then, and Schwab just proved it with his comments in the last paragraph. It doesn't pose an existential threat and is being used for other purposes. This is why THI is always ahead of the game. We see through the bullshit distraction programs and focus in on the hidden hand agendas. And his next comment proves that statement even more. Schwab also speaks of the coming fourth industrial revolution, where most human jobs will be accomplished by robotics. Well, I never. And he said the COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century. It has laid bare the fundamental lack of social cohesion, fairness, inclusion and equality. And he said, in short, we need a great reset. And for Schwab, a choice exists between going back to the capitalist status quo, which has served most quite well since the end of the World War II, and a new system of capitalism light with Marxist elements thrown in. Specifically, he said, we will need to reconsider our collective commitment to capitalism as we have known it. And he said we must rethink what we mean by capital in its many iterations, whether that is financial, environmental, social, or human. His words. Humans as capital. Oh my. Now, where have we heard that before? Perhaps the term human resources makes more sense now. He then says, today's consumers don't do not want more and better goods and services for a reasonable price. But it's all very well, Mr. Schwab, but where are the funds coming from to pay for these better goods and services, with jobs outsourced to an army of R2-D2s? Yet again, Ouroboros thinking patterns, Mr. Schwab. And these people are so hell-bent on control, they lose sight of the fact that the very people who keep them in control and rolling in currencies are we the people, not robots. These people are utter jackasses. And then he says they increasingly expect companies to contribute to social welfare and the common good. In other words, corporations should no longer exist solely in order to create goods and gain profit, but to assist in curing society's ills, almost if the companies themselves are a part of government. The corporate companies are a part of the government. Do you think we're all stupid, Mr. Schwab? All you're doing is revealing your hand that was once hidden. The USA Inc. is the corporate company acting as a government of America. So you're not telling us anything new. You might be telling a whole heap of other people something new, but certainly not us. He then says we have a choice. I don't like their choices. Those, what is the lesser of two evils? Neither is the third choice, the triality. To remain passive, which would lead to the amplification of many of the trends we see today: polarization, nationalism, racism, and ultimately increased social unrest and confidence, warned Schwab. All of those categories which was created by think tank groups, of which Mr. Schwab is part of. Then he says, but we have another choice. We can build a new social contract, particularly integrating the next generation. We don't want and need your contracts, and you can stick them where the sun don't shine. Then he says we can change our behaviour to be in harmony with nature again. Now that is comedy at its best. We can change our behaviour to be in harmony with nature again. The same global elitists who have rampaged this planet of many resources to line their own pockets, and now they speak like they are environmentalists. Environs, no. Mentalists, definitely. And we can make sure that the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution are best utilised to provide us with better lives. In Schwab's new world, things such as rolling lockdowns, crowd restrictions and mask mandates will become a permanent part of not only America but the entire world. And this change, Schwab believes, is coming whether we like it or not. Radical changes of such consequence are coming that some pundits have referred to as before coronavirus, BC, and after coronavirus, AC era. And he said we will continue to be surprised by both the rapidity and unexpected nature of these changes as they conflate with each other. They will provoke a second, third, fourth and more order consequences, cascading effects and unforeseen outcomes, he said. But when you break it all down, Schwab's pronouncements are little more than repackaging of the same globalist agenda that we've been hearing about since the 1990s. This time, however, globalists such as Schwab are using the COVID-19 pandemic as an excuse to foist their collectivist ideas on the world. It's almost as if this pandemic itself was part of the plan, a triggering point in a global behavior modification exercise. You know, it's some plan, and you have to give them some credit for that. But we have to stop it. You know, in less than a year, they've gotten the entire planet wearing unnecessary masks and allowing themselves to be locked down in the name of public health. And one has to wonder what the next radical change is going to be. And according to Schwab, you will own nothing and you will be happy about it. The US won't be the world's leading superpower. It wasn't to begin with. And you won't die waiting for an organ donor. They will be made by 3D printers. You will eat much less meat. Meat will be an occasional treat, not a staple, for the good of the environment and our health. 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change. And that came from Soros's open borders claim, remember. Polluters will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide. There will be global price on carbon, and this will help make fossil fuels history. After they've controlled all the new energy, that is. And they said Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. Checks and balances that underpin our democracies must not be forgotten. Couple of pieces about that. The Simon Perez Center for Peace. Oh my. For peace, really. Let's remind people about Mr. Perez, shall we? Because he was responsible in building nuclear weapons or attaining nuclear weapons for Israel in the 1960s. He was also involved in the planning of the Suez Canal War. Declared war on Egypt in 1956, spent most of his time bombing weapons off the UK, America, and in particular France, ordered a long-range Israeli airstrike against the PLO headquarters in Tunis, Morocco. He also initiated Operation Grapes of Wrath, in which 106 Lebanese civilians died, and was also a supporter of the mass genocidal, homicidal maniac Ariel Sharon. And for all that, you get a Peace Prize. The world is totally backwards. Peace is peace and war is war. One doesn't kill and one does. Bit of common sense again. And we have to change their BC and AC descriptions from before and after COVID to before and after clowns. And Mr. Schwab is an old dancing puppet and a clown of the highest order. But we will thank him for his honesty, and now we the people have a choice. Our choice, not their choice. Globalist tyranny as warned in Clowns in Panic, or a new way as formulated by the People's Club. That is our choice. If you ever thought for 1 minute the bantering war between America and China was government-based, Trump versus Xi, then this story blows that away. China has strongly rebuked the UK, the US, Australia, New Zealand and Canada after being accused of a concerted effort to silence critics in Hong Kong. The countries which form the Five Eyes Alliance criticised China's imposition of new rules to disqualify elected legislators in Hong Kong, and they urged Beijing to reverse course. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman said this week and warned countries to stay out of China's affairs, saying they should be careful or their eyes will be plucked out. They should be careful or their eyes will be plucked out. And he said the Chinese never make trouble and are never afraid of anything, according to Zhao Lijian, who spoke to journalists on Thursday today saying it did not matter if they had 5 or 10 eyes. That story was ran by the BBC, which is MI5, MI6, and said this in an effort to appease the non-thinking people. Five Eyes is an intelligence-sharing alliance of the 5 Anglophone countries set up during the Cold War and initially developed to monitor the USSR and its allies. That's what the BBC told the non-thinking people. Well, actually MI5-6, because they run the BBC. We, on the other hand, know different. And we will ask the BBC, then why is the KGB part of the Five Eyes network? Oops. And has been since 1946, before the Cold War and after. Also during. So now you know this war that's going on is a war on behalf of intelligence agencies. And it's got nothing to do with the people or the governments of those 2 countries. And at which point do the people and or the governments not realise this is a fact and stop it? This piece, or the piece about the first draft disinformation group earlier, plays into this piece of intel for this week. And we've outed several of these behind-the-scenes operations that are ran by agencies, and here's another one. Operation Timber Sycamore was a classified weapons supply and training operation ran by the CIA and supported by some Arab intelligence services, such as the Security Service in Saudi Arabia. Launched in 2012 through 2013, it supplied money, weaponry and training to rebel forces fighting Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Oops. And this operation was run by the CIA's Special Activities Division, SAD. And yes, you are sad. Sad and depressing and sad and twisted. And has trained thousands of rebels. And the operation's existence was suspected after the US Federal Business Opportunities website publicly solicited contract bids to ship tons of weaponry from Eastern Europe to Tasuku, Turkey, and Aqaba, Jordan. And one of the consequences of the program has been a flood of US weapons, including assault rifles, mortars, and rocket-propelled grenades, into the Middle East's black market. So who was involved in this? Vice President Joe Biden is known to have been an active proponent of Operation Timber Sycamore within the Obama administration, and the president secretly authorized the CIA to begin arming Syrian rebels in 2012. Oops. In July 2017, US officials stated that Timber Sycamore would be phased out, with funds possibly redirected to fighting the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, ISIL, or to offering rebel forces defensive capabilities. Have some of that, you clowns.